In our previous episode, we had gone through the steps in creating our Alpha Marine, and with the model kitbashed and primed, it's now ready to start the painting process. Deciding on the colours is quite easy. The Alpha Legion side has already been determined, but for the Space Marine it's a bit more open for choice, and for this Marine we will pick the Imperial fists. To start the painting, we will paint the Alpha side first. In order to get the correct colours, we will mix up our mid-tone first and then create the dark tone, which will be used to cover the model for the first layer. To create the mid-tone, we'll take blue-green and yellow-green from Vallejo and we will be mixing them together in a 1:1 ratio. Because we will be going back and forth to the mid-tone for more mixing, you will want to keep this colour mix to the side, either on your palette or, if you're using an airbrush, I like to load the mix colour into a syringe for easier access. Now to create the dark tone. Adding a 2:1 mix ratio of our original mid-tone mix into black-brown from Vallejo. This will give us our dark tones and this will be used to base the entire model. Next, it's time to add our mid-tone over. Give the model a gentle thin coat and try not to cover the recesses and darker undersides. For the highlights, it is another colour mix of our base mid-tone mix, adding pale sands, again in another 2:1 mix, 2 parts our mid-tone, 1 part pale sands. This will leave our brighter blue for the highlights. With the base Alpha Legion armour painted, we want to preserve the paint so we can re-perform the same process on the Gravis armour. Now don't worry about using the liquid mask. It is easy to remove just as long as you have the patience. We will coat and cover the entire side that we want to protect. The mask is a light blue colour when it is wet. Once it dries, it will go more transparent but will maintain the blue hue. Once the areas are coated, wait 5 minutes for the liquid mask to dry. With the Alpha side done, it's time to move on to the opposite side. There is a stigma that painting with yellow can be difficult. While I am not using a brush, there is still some difficulty in achieving the colour with an airbrush. So, to start painting the Imperial fist side, I will base the entire side in flat yellow from Vallejo. With that dry, I will take dark rust wash from Vallejo and I will spray this into the lower areas, recesses and darker spots. Give that a few minutes to dry and done. That's it. The yellow is done. Seriously, it's done. Give the paint some time to dry, and now it's time to peel back the mask. Using a pair of tweezers and a toothpick, slowly pick at the edge of the mask and slowly pry and peel the mask off. Remember to take your time. You do not need to yank it off. With the mask peeled and removed, we can start to bring some small details to the armour, such as the weathering. Taking Rhinox Hide from Citadel, I will add small stipples in random areas on the armour, both on the Alpha side and on the Imperial fist side. This will be to simulate paint chipping and leaving rust spots and dirt. Depending on which side you are now dealing with, Adding pale sands to either mixes will give the highlight of the colour, which will be used to highlight the edges of the chipping. For detail, I will base the electricity phasing mark to help identify and brighten the areas for later use. So far, here is how the Marine looks. We have the Alpha side, and we have the Imperial Fist side. While it's starting to come together, we still have some ways to go. Next up, we will quickly base the Aquila and the shoulder pad trim using Mephiston Red. For the eyes, we will base them using pale sands for later use. A sharp brush and steady hands are really needed here. To deal with the trim, I use Retributor armour, nice and simple to get our gold based. Next is time to shade the trim. Using Guilliman's Flesh wash from Citadel, this will give the gold a brownish hue shift for the recesses. Now we are left with a mostly based and highlighted model. The next step is to get that grim dark appearance. It's time to add the streaking rusts. While using an airbrush booth, I'll coat the entire model in AK Interactive streaking rusts. Give it a good coating and leave it to dry for a few minutes. The next part is to start the reductive process of removing the streaking rust back down to its original painted parts. Taking a Q-tip, I'll saturate the entire model in white spirits to reactivate the streaking rusts. Next, using a weathering brush to scratch the streaking rusts to create micro streaks. With that done, it's time to take the Q-tip again and resaturate the streaking rusts. This time round, the white spirits will react with the micro streaks and cause areas to start naturally streaking. Because this model is a much smaller scale, I'll also take a clean Q-tip and start brushing the streaking rust with the intention of removing it from the area. I only want to keep the streaking rust in the recesses and deeper areas while it lightly touches the higher areas. With the majority of the areas dealt by the Q-tip, there are some areas which are hard to reach. This time round, I will use a brush to feather the edges out and clean some of the areas. Once you are happy, leave the model to dry for about 30 minutes. With the weathering done, the highest areas of the model will look a little dull. So, taking the original highlight colours, respective of each side, I'll use it to pick out the sharpest edges and flattest areas which would catch the most light. Mixing down each mixture 1:1 with Lamy medium to create a glaze. This will give you more control in its placement. For the talons, I didn't want to just stick with basic metal. For these, I'll use Dirty Down Rust. When painting smaller parts, the paint can be a little too thick, and it may struggle in providing any of the colour shifts that you may expect. For this, you can dilute the mixture using isopropyl alcohol in a mix of 4:1. 4 parts rust, 1 part IPA. Remember to warm the bottle and the model before applying. To deal with the lightning easily, I'll use white ink from Dawnstone and spray it over the initial traced line we did earlier. Next is the use of another ink. Winsor & Newton Ink Purple. This will be to cover all of the white ink that we've just put down. With the purple done, we will now retrace the white scattered line running through the middle part of the purple spray. Make it scattered and jagged. For this, I'll use ivory from Vallejo. The last parts to deal with are the eyes and edge highlighting of certain edges from the electricity. With that all done, we are left with this.
By God. Tell me, what are we looking at over here?
Just the first model in the series that we've just finished.
Finished? Boy, you make me laugh. You still haven't even finished the last model.
But Arthur, if you would have just watched the video, you would have seen...
I don't need to hear your excuses, boy. You done left me sleeping on that last one.
I didn't want to disturb you.
I told you to wake me up and you never did. Look here, sun's going down. We ain't got a lot of time left.
We have plenty of time.
Wait, tell the good people what's coming up next.